Have you ever trusted someone with your belongings, only to have them betray that trust in the worst possible way? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. It all started when my HOA, yes, the same people who are supposed to make sure everything runs smoothly, decided to give other members access to my personal storage unit without even asking me. I was furious and honestly a little shocked. How could they just let people into my private space without any warning or consent? But here's the twist. I wasn't about to let this slide. If they thought they could waltz into my life and take control, they had another thing coming. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I changed the locks on my storage unit, something that would definitely ruffle some feathers. But that wasn't all. To send a real message, I took things even further and towed every single car that was illegally parked on the property. The reactions were priceless. People were livid. But guess what? It wasn't over. There's so much more to this story that you won't believe. Stick around to find out how this crazy situation unfolded and what happened when the HOA tried to fight back. It all started a few weeks earlier when I received a strange letter from the HOA. At first, I thought it was just the usual reminder about paying dues or some policy update, but as I read on, my stomach dropped. The letter informed me that the HOA was granting certain members access to storage units, mine included. The reason? They claimed it was for community safety and maintenance purposes. No explanation, no warning, just a decision made behind closed doors. I was beyond frustrated. Who authorized this? Why wasn't I told about it? And what if someone had taken something from my unit? The thought made my blood boil. I reached out to the HOA to demand answers, but all I got was vague responses and a lot of empty promises. They assured me my things were safe, but how could I trust them? I had no control over who was coming and going from my unit, and honestly, that wasn't something I was okay with. So I started to dig around. I spoke with other residents and learned that several of them had noticed strange people wandering around near the storage areas. Some even reported seeing cars parked in odd spots. That's when the idea hit me. If they were going to mess with my stuff, I was going to show them exactly how far I was willing to go. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. This wasn't just about my storage unit anymore. It was about the principle. How could the HOA just give out access to personal property without any consent? There were people in this community who didn't even follow basic rules, and now they were being trusted with my stuff. It felt like a violation of everything I'd worked for. I decided to take action, but I wasn't going to do it quietly. I first reached out to my neighbors, hoping to rally some support. What I discovered was even more unsettling. A few of them had noticed the same thing: the strange people, the random cars parked in odd places, and the growing sense of discomfort. Some had already complained to the HOA about the lack of transparency, but nothing had changed. It seemed like the HOA had become too comfortable, acting like they had all the power. One neighbor, a guy named Mike, even mentioned that he'd seen one of the HOA board members near my storage unit a few times. At first, I thought maybe it was just a coincidence, but the more I heard, the more I began to suspect something fishy was going on. Were they using the access to my unit for something else? Was there more to this than a simple maintenance reason? The thought gnawed at me, but I had a bigger plan brewing. Changing the locks was just the first move. If I was going to stand my ground, I needed to make sure the HOA understood they couldn't mess with me or my belongings. And as for the cars, they were fair game now. I had to make sure that the HOA realized I wasn't just another person they could walk all over. I wasn't going to let this slide. But what happened next? Well, that's when things got really complicated. The tension in the community was starting to build, and I could feel it in the air. People were beginning to whisper, and I knew the HOA was starting to feel the heat, but they hadn't taken me seriously yet. I had a feeling they were underestimating me. They'd probably thought that I'd just let this slide like everyone else had done in the past. But this wasn't just about my storage unit anymore. It was about taking a stand. The day I changed the locks was the day things took a sharp turn. I went to my storage unit early in the morning, when no one was around. I had a locksmith meet me there, and we made the change. It felt like a small victory, but I knew the real battle was about to begin. When I left, I noticed a few cars parked near the storage area, some of which I didn't recognize. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I was sure they were watching. They knew something had changed, and it wouldn't be long before they came after me. Later that afternoon, I got a call from the HOA. They were furious. They told me I had no right to lock my storage unit, that it was a community area, and I was causing unnecessary conflict. I could feel their anger through the phone, but that only made me more determined. I wasn't backing down. In fact, that night, I decided to take things a step further. I towed the cars that had been parked illegally, just like I had planned. But when I showed up to the parking lot the next morning, I found something unexpected. A group of HOA members were standing near the towing lot, staring me down. They had already started talking to the tow company, trying to reverse the action. It was clear they weren't going to let this go without a fight. But what happened next? Well, that's where everything took a sharp turn. The tension between us was about to reach its breaking point, and I had no idea how far the HOA was willing to go to get what they wanted. The stage was set for a showdown. As I stood there, watching the HOA members huddled together by the towing lot, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. They were talking in hushed voices, but I could hear the tension in their words. It wasn't just about the cars anymore. Something bigger was going on. One of them, I recognized as Janet, the head of the HOA, turned and caught my eye. For a split second, I saw a flicker of something in her expression: fear, anger. I couldn't tell, but it made me uneasy. Then the unthinkable happened. Janet walked up to me, her face tight with frustration, and without warning, she handed me a letter. "You've crossed a line," she said, her voice low and steady. I could tell this wasn't just about the locks or the tow. It was personal now. I opened the letter, my heart racing as I read the words. It wasn't just an angry warning. It was a legal notice. The HOA was suing me. The shock hit me hard. I had no idea they could go this far. I had made it clear I wasn't going to let them take control, but this, a lawsuit. My mind was spinning. As if that wasn't enough, Janet didn't stop there. She told me that, as part of the legal action, they had uncovered something in my past, something I had never shared with anyone, something that could ruin me if it got out. She smirked, clearly relishing the power she now held over me. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a fight over a storage unit anymore. This was personal, and the stakes had been raised in ways I hadn't anticipated. Janet knew something about me that could tear my life apart, and now she was using it as leverage. I had to figure out how to fight back, but I couldn't do it alone. I needed to find out exactly what they knew, and more importantly, how I could turn it against them, because I wasn't backing down. Not now, not ever. The weight of the lawsuit hung over me like a dark cloud, but I wasn't going to let Janet's threats control me. As soon as I left the parking lot, my mind started working overtime. I couldn't let her use whatever she knew about me to destroy everything I had worked for. I needed answers. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went straight to the source. That night, I snuck into the HOA's office. It wasn't easy, and I had to be careful. There were security cameras, but I knew the layout well enough to avoid them. I was looking for anything that could help me find out what exactly they had on me. My hands shook as I flipped through files, searching for something that would give me leverage. Then I found it. Buried deep in one of the drawers, there was a folder with my name on it. I felt my pulse quicken as I opened it. What I saw wasn't what I expected. The documents weren't about my past at all. They were about ***. The HOA had been involved in some shady activities for years, and they had been covering it up by using their power to control residents like me. They'd been skimming money, manipulating maintenance contracts, and worse. Janet wasn't trying to ruin my life. She was protecting her own empire. I couldn't believe it. The power had shifted. I wasn't the one being threatened anymore. They were the ones who had been using people for their gain, and now it was time for me to turn the tables. With the evidence in hand, I filed a countersuit and went public. It wasn't just about taking back my storage unit anymore. It was about exposing everything they had done. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The HOA board tried to fight back, but it was too late. The news of their corruption spread like wildfire through the community. But just when I thought the dust had settled, something unexpected happened. Janet, the one who had started all of this, came to me with an offer. She wanted to settle, but not with money. She wanted *, my silence *.